This video is sponsored by RenderHub, which is one of the best marketplaces for artists. More on that later. If you had opened Blender in the late 2000s, you would have found a 3D program that already had sculpting, animation, compositing, and even a game engine. On paper, it looked ambitious, but the way all these systems were glued together told a different story. The code base dated back to the 90s, when Blender started as an in-house tool at Neo Geo, and over the years, new features were added on top of that early structure. It worked, but it was fragile. Developers often describe the program as difficult to extend. Something as simple as adding a new operator could mean touching multiple areas of code. For users, this showed up in odd ways. Hotkeys were hard-coded, meaning you couldn't freely remap them, and panels didn't scale well as tools multiplied. The interface felt cramped once project got complex. Also, Python existed, but its access to Blender was limited and inconsistent. In short, the foundation was holding Blender back. But everything has changed with Blender 2.5. So how exactly did that happen? Quick shout out to RenderHub for sponsoring this video. Most of you already know the site, but if you haven't checked it out for a while, here is why it may be worth your time. If you want to speed up your projects, RenderHub has a massive asset library that can save you hours of modeling. There is also a section with free models, and you can check formats and textures before downloading so you always know exactly what you're getting. They've also been building up tutorials, mostly Blender focused, as an easy way if you're looking for a learning path or improve your workflow. I've got to say that the gallery is fun to scroll through, and the fact that the blog is pretty active as well, covering artist interviews, reviews, and software updates. And every now and then, they run themed contests, which is a nice excuse to try something new and share your work with other artists. If you're interested, you will find all the links in the description. As Blender gained popularity, expectations kept rising. Users wanted an interface that made more sense, and developers wanted a clean API, especially studios thinking about Blender for production, which needed to be reliable. The old system wasn't meant for that kind of scale. Imagine trying to re-innovate a house where every new wall affects the plumbing and electricity. This becomes quickly unsustainable. For Tom Roosendaal and the Blender Foundation, the only solution was rewriting Blender from the inside out. The event system had to be replaced so hotkeys could be redefined. The interface needed to be reorganized around editors and panels that could adapt as features grew. You see, Python had to be modernized so external developers could build tools without constantly hitting a dead end. As you might imagine, the rewrite was risky, but it was the only realistic path forward. When the first alpha builds of Blender 2.5 appeared in 2009, the community was divided. The software looked completely different. Menus were reorganized, properties were collected in a new editor, and the toolbar was context sensitive. For experienced users, years of muscle memory suddenly felt unreliable, but at the same time, you could sense the ambition behind the change. Blender 2.5 wasn't a polished final product, it was just a transition, an invitation for both users and developers to step into a new era. Testing those early builds gave people a glimpse of the future. Panels collapsed neatly, the spacebar could be remapped, and scripts could interact with the UI in ways that were previously impossible. It felt less like an update and more like a blueprint for the Blender we know today. The interface overhaul is what most people remember from Blender 2.5 because the earlier one was undeniably tough to use. Before this version, many settings were scattered across button windows and tiny panels. If you wanted to adjust render settings, you often had to jump across multiple areas. Blender 2.5 fixed that by introducing the Properties editor, which brought order to the chaos. Contexts like render, world, materials, textures, and modifiers were organized into tabs with collapsible panels. The interface changes also carried over into the way you worked. Adding a modifier kept its option in the same place instead of burying them elsewhere. Animation got a boost from the improved Deep Sheet and Graph editor, and the outliner was refined too, making it easier to see and control scene data in structured ways. the adjustment period was real, but once you got used to it, the new logic saved time. You see, Blender went from being a tool that you had to memorize to one that you could explore more naturally. Beyond the interface, the rewrite also transformed how Blender handled input. In older builds, hotkeys were hard-coded directly into the source, which made them almost impossible for users to customize. Blender 2.5 solved this with editable keymaps in the preferences, opening the door to personal setups and shared presets. So suddenly you could remap shortcuts to match Maya, Max, or your own workflow. For professionals moving between different tools, this was a huge relief, and for teaching, it lowered the barrier of entry. I mean by that, instructors could set Blender up to match what students already knew. It may sound normal now, but in 2009, this kind of customization was a big deal, especially for an open source 3D software. One of the most transformative changes came with scripting. Before 2.5, Python in Blender felt like working around barriers. You could automate tasks, but integrating scripts into the UI was messy and inconsistent. The Rewrite API changed all that, so Blender became scriptable in a structured way, where Addons could define operators, panels, and UI elements that blended seamlessly into the program. Developers outside the Blender Foundation could now create tools that felt native. This opened the door to the add-on ecosystem we see today: scatter system, hard surface modeling kits, retopology helpers, asset managers, and render utilities. Many of those ideas simply couldn't have been possible without the foundation laid in version 2.5. If you've ever installed an add-on and used it as if it were part of Blender itself, this experience goes straight back to this rewrite, which shows why this version is actually a game changer. The transition, of course, wasn't smooth. Early 2.5 builds were unstable, and many features that users relied on were missing or broken. For a while, Blender 2.49 and 2.5 coexisted, with some projects staying in the old version until the new batch matured. For many of us, it created confusion. Tutorials had to specify which version they are applied to, and switching back and forth could be actually frustrating. Learning Blender during this time sometimes felt like trying to catch a moving train, but these growing pains were part of the process. The foundation was upfront that 2.5 was a work in progress, and the community's patience was rewarded as the later 2.6 and 2.7 series stabilized and expanded the new design. What made Blender 2.5 so important wasn't only the features that it introduced, but the foundation it created. Later milestones including cycles, also the improved compositor, motion tracking, sculpting upgrades, and eventually Eevee, were only possible because Blender's structure had been modernized. Think about Blender today, with its asset browser, geometry nodes, and advanced physics. None of these tools could have been slotted into the pre-2.5 architecture. The rewrite allowed Blender to scale, evolving from a niche hobbyist tool into a serious option for professionals in animation, VFX, and game development. Looking back, Blender 2.5 actually marks a turning point, because to be honest, it disrupted workflows, demanded patience, and sometimes tested the loyalty of the community. But it also proved that open source software could reinvent itself on a massive scale. If you are using Blender right now, everything from the customizable interface to the add-ons that you rely on ties back to this period. Even the way Blender is taught today, with more predictable workflows and consistent editors, has roots in 2.5 version. But the reality is, it is easy to take these things for granted, but for those who lived through the transition, the difference was night and day. And there you have it, guys. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Also, please subscribe to this channel to receive more videos like this. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.